Now, I am quite late on this review, but to tell you the truth, I'm always late on book reports. Now, Royce the 5'9", he's of course a MC who have heavy association with Eminem. He even was on Eminem's first major album where he featured as evil when bad meets evil, or should I say he featured as bad, Eminem was evil. And of course, he had a little fallout with them, but then he regained back their trust and love, and of course, did a EP with Eminem that was pretty great. And he released his own material, which was quite good. And then he released this album. Now, this album had very raving reviews. It was given a 9 by the critics who covered it, as he's very underground, which I don't really trust critics anymore because they're heavily biased when it comes to artists, and they're really viewing in a sort of hindsight, what I like to call this whole hindsight reviewer, where you don't know what's going to pop and what's going to be considered as great and have a legacy like 10 years or 20 years down the line. So you give mediocre stuff a pretty non disagreeable score, and you give high stuff like a Kendrick, like a very high score, just to cover your P's and Q's. And I felt like this is what happened with this album right here, to tell you the truth. You have the first three tracks being about a minute and a half, and they're pretty great. You start off with the intro track, which in my opinion should have been called This Morning, because it just starts off with this morning I would do this morning I would do that, you know. And then you have a little intro called Woke, which should have been called Hotep, because he talks about Hotep this, Hotep that. He also talks about people making fun of him and calling him a tar baby, which was very sad. And he was his only mother's dark-skinned child. Now, the next track has very tribal drums, and it sounded pretty good. And it also talks about how people will trade the medical for the physical, or worry about the physical and never really about the mental in life, which is pretty cool. And you know what? J. Cole also had themes like that on his album, KOD. And speaking of J. Cole, he is featured heavily, or cast a heavy shadow on this track. On the song Boats, he of course talks about, and also the song Boats could be a reference to Lil Yachty, since J. Cole dissed a whole generation of mumble rappers on his song 1985, by the way. But J. Cole also referenced how he's getting chicks like Jodeci, which of course he had that whole Jodeci rap by the biracial Messiah Drake, and also he's biracial too. And speaking of biracial, let's speak about Logic, who even notes J. Cole and how he gave him advice for his last album, you know. And on the Caterpillar remix, Logic cries about how he went platinum, but they still won't let him on BET, which is a little strange because BET actually allows like white people on there, and Logic, of course, is biracial. He won't let us forget. But, you know, of course, he talks about how if he embraced his other side, then people would be mad at him for saying that he's white and it's so great to be white. And they'll say that your father is black, which is a little bit twist on your mama's black. You know, of course, you know that stereotype. But there is a lot of talks about racial politics and skin hue, like on the song Amazing. I really like how he notes that his grandfather went around 3 times the neighborhood backwards because he saw a black cat, which just shows how superstitious he is. But that's not the only dysfunctional family member in his family. He talks about how his father knocked his brother out on the song Power during a Thanksgiving feast. And his father is referenced a lot, especially talking about how his father suffered with drug abuse, especially on the intro, which is Who Are You?, where he talks about how he penned this letter after his father and family members, and that the letter is where the album title come from. But if you like and reminisce and miss talking, you should really hear the skit about protecting, because it's like 3 minutes of him talking and talking and talking, which really gave me flashbacks of Logic's Everybody. And I'm just like, I wasn't a big fan of that. And I really feel that I like my rappers rhyming about their lives, not talking about it. It's not a Def Jam poetry slam or something like that. And when he's not talking, this album, he's just jam packing it with cliches, like the whole saying, they laugh at me because I'm different, but I laugh at them that because they're all the same. Like, I heard that quotation so many times. And he even tells us that it's from Kurt Cobain. Thanks. I really needed to know that. And then on Anything, Everything, he just barrages us with quotations, and it really makes me feel like this is really a fucking book, and it's just citing its where it got its information from, which is not a good thing to me. And when he's not like quoting people verbatim, he on Legendary is just using old corny ass jokes like the old saying Nebuary. Like, really, dude, that's not even fucking clever anymore. Now, speaking of not being clever, let's talk about T-Pain. T-Pain did an alright, I guess, feature on the song First of a Month, which, really remind me of the far superior Bone Thugs and Harmony track. But let's just get back to this. And of course, he has this reference where he says he's going to put a wedding ring on all your fingers, which, is a waste of money, but I guess he could do it. On the song Stay Woke, I like that he referenced how Eminem got him off drugs and he'd been sober for 5 years, which is good for him. And I like Eminem's feature on Caterpillar. He really demolishes mumble rap and of course have some witty lines. And Royce the 5'9" also have a witty line where he referenced lions and tigers. Very good track. I kind of think that Caterpillar is heavily referencing Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, since it was originally called To Pimp a Caterpillar, by the way. But you know what? There are some unfortunate references, like Issa Rae being referenced eating out Lisa Rae. Issa Rae, after she made those Asian comments, maybe not the best referencing. Also, Summer on Lock features Jadakiss and Fabulous. And of course, Jadakiss talks about how life the bitch, and he has it on lock. And after those domestic violence reports come out, I really think that was a little bit bad phrasing. Oh, yes, and Dreams have a reference to, Dreams is a reference to Biggie Smalls and that track, and it keeps up the whole reference by referencing trannies, just like the song Dream did when Biggie Smalls says he rather fuck, I forgot that tranny's name. He rather fuck RuPaul. Yes, that's it. Cocaine has a beautiful falsetto that he did that was pretty nice, and I find the song Life is Fair a little bit ironic, since he's talking about all the negligent stuff that happened to him, like he steal bikes with his friend and then his friend turning around and stealing his bike, or, a neighbor breaking into his house, very much. Oh, yes, and I find that the track Outside is very sweet, where his dad is giving him family advice about how he needs to go to college and he needs to watch out for the police. I really thought that was pretty nice, to tell you the truth. Overall, this is a nice album, but it is really slugged down with a lot of boring skits and a lot of stuff. There's an old saying, show don't tell, and I really thought that this album could have shown by lyrics than tell by, just telling, just having like these little vocal skits. Overall, I think I'm going to give it a 6. It was a pretty nice album, but a little bit too bloated. So please like, subscribe, and share this video.